Good morning, everyone. Uh, David Padgett here. I just want to demonstrate some possibilities for the food security map that we are working on. A few years ago, I was actually working with a stakeholder group in a community here in Nashville. Um, they were actually high school students. And so I wanted to get the nature of their experiences living in a food desert. And so we collectively created some map products using some existing layers. And then they completed a survey. And then with that survey, we compared the survey results to the existing layers on the map, just to get an idea of where we could go with this and maybe some ideas for some content that may already be available that seems to be pretty good. So I'm going to share my screen now. And so here is the map entitled Pearl High Students Urban Food Environment with USA Food Expenditures at Home. So let's look at the base layer first. Base layer, of course, is a shared layer, food at home, total divided by food away from home. So essentially, this is theoretically a measure of how much money families are spending outside of their homes. The assumption is that if they live in a food desert, then they are eating out more often, not necessarily preparing meals, which would be presumably healthy. And I guess these expenditures outside of the home would perhaps put a strain on family budgets. So in Nashville, um, I was the first person to map Nashville's food deserts. And what you're looking at here is the approximate location of what we would call the North Nashville food desert. And so the layers that we have are grocery stores visited most often. So I asked the students to tell us, where are the grocery stores your family visits most often. So there's a Kroger here, there's another Kroger over there. That's a Walmart, neighborhood Walmart. So remember, these students live at locations represented by these point symbols, all pretty much within the North Nashville Food Desert. One thing you'll notice is that they go shopping at distances pretty far away, relatively far away from where they live. And so this jibes with the literacy on food deserts, being that people in those communities don't necessarily shop at convenience markets, or nor do they shop at gas stations or other places that might sell food but might not sell the quality of groceries a person would want. They shop at the same places that everybody else does. It's just more difficult to get there. And so another variable in this is transportation, that perhaps is reflected in the other databases. We asked them, well, how many days per week does your family eat fast food? And just to give you some background, this school, Pearl High School, is 100% free and reduced lunch. And at the time we did this, it was about 94% African American, your typical urban, low-income community high school, with everything that goes along with that. So this is the pot, and also right in the heart of the North Nashville food desert, is identified by myself. So the assumption was that So we asked them about how many days you eat fast food. Now there is the research does show that families that live in food deserts tend to eat fast food more often than others outside of food deserts. And of course, that consumption of fast food can be detrimental to one's health, as we all know. But it's convenient, it's cheap, and it tends to be plentiful. So that brings us to the term food swamps. So some of these neighborhoods are just littered with these fast food options that provide a steady diet of fried chicken and processed foods, but oftentimes that's what's most affordable. So, as you can see, some of the young people said that their families ate fast food 3 to 4 days of the week out of 7. Um, then, how many days do these families go to the grocery store? A lot of them go to 12 over 12 days per month, some between 5 and 12. And so the assumption here is that the farther that the students lived away from the grocery store, the less often they would shop. So these numbers were somewhat surprising. And next we have driving distance to grocery stores. And I specifically said driving distance because out of the several students that we included in this study, all of them said that they got to the grocery store by private vehicle. So we had a list of options. How does your family get to the grocery store? Private vehicle, bus, walk, other. All of them said they got there in a private vehicle. Somebody might have known somebody who has a car, and so on and so forth. And so what we were looking for was whether or not these, so here these red point symbols represent, for example, families that eat fast food relatively often, and we would expect those to align with the areas that are darker shades in terms of expenditures outside of the home. And to some degree, there is a correlation, not a strong correlation, of course. We expected for the families that had a longer travel distance to grocery stores to coincide with these census tracts that represent populations that spend more money outside the home than average. So obviously this is a very qualitative look at an existing layer in ArcGIS that represents some degree of food insecurity, or could be some of a measure of it, but also it's combined with neighbor community data where we query data on, query communities on, where do you eat, how much fast food do you eat, and see if there's a correlation there. That could, of course, present opportunities for intervention. So also having a second map. So here's a very interesting map, same data, but overlaid with a layer of called supermarket access. And so we have the same data that was collected from the students, again, which could be collected from any population. But this is a very interesting map layer in that it shows USA supermarket access combined with poverty and combined with, so you have people in poverty with low access. And that, as you can see, those data set, those data points correlate very strongly with what we see on the ground. Not 100%. And of course, we see the locations of our supermarkets. Um, and so we have areas that have 11 or more supermarkets. No places in Nashville are identified on that level. But we do have plenty of places where there are no supermarkets within 1 mile, and that falls approximately right into where many of our subjects are in this study area, um, as you can see. And so this is just another example of how we can combine existing uh, layers that are an amalgamation of several variables, including poverty and number of supermarkets and even distance where there's a drive of more than 10 minutes, whether they're, so whether people are getting to the supermarket walking or driving. Uh, Point being that in some cases, we don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. Okay, so for this next set of maps, I'm going to go back and share my screen again. And this is a project that I worked on with Dr. Heather O'Hara at Meharry Medical College, looking at the impact of food deserts in Black communities in Nashville, Tennessee. And I just wanted to show you this map. This is one of the first maps of Nashville's food deserts, along with and so here's downtown Nashville at the center. These area symbols colored in yellow are the food deserts that I identified, and essentially my process was based upon lack of access to transit, or lack of access to private vehicles, 1 mile distance to the nearest grocery store, symbolized by these blue dots, and poverty. And so those three elements are what I use to identify Nashville's food deserts. And so I just wanted to show you that map as a reference because it led to my involvement in the REACH 2020 study. So the REACH 2020 study was funded by the Centers for Disease Control at about $500,000 over 3 years. And this was a food desert intervention project that was the PI for the project was the late Dr. Margaret Hargreaves. And so we were looking at ways to mitigate the impact of food deserts in Nashville's Black communities. The strategy selected was to support, I guess, pop-up urban markets in and around various places that had little access to grocery stores, and also were in food deserts. So some of the main places that we found need were senior citizens' homes or retired persons' homes. And so a lot of our partners were faith-based organizations. And so those are locations of those markets. So here's a map that I produced in support of that program. So here are the locations of the pop-up markets. There's one New Life church. Here's another one, Metro Interdenominational Fellowship, and so on and so forth. And I've layered these community partners locations with, again, this map of supermarket access. So in this way, we are trying to see if, in fact, our community partners were located in the areas of greatest need based upon this base map. Because in some cases we really cannot control exactly which faith-based organizations are going to be open, or whatever organizations are going to be open to providing services to the community. We hope that they are in the areas of most need, of greatest need, and really, based upon this map, as you can see, our community partners, we did a really good job, and we did use this map as a guide, but we really did a good job of targeting those areas that have the greatest need in terms of lack of supermarket access. And so this map combines people in poverty with low access to supermarkets. And as you can see, where our partners are located, that's where we were serving. And then as you can see, the partners that had the greatest numbers of individuals served at these pop-up markets also coincided with this map. So in this way, we can use this map of USA supermarket access, perhaps, as a guide for determining where we should put mitigative measures in place for food insecurity. This is just one example that I thought I would show you. And so just wanted to provide just a little bit of guidance for what is possible in terms of existing data, and then how we can, of course, add other more informative layers to show us where places are that have the greatest need and where services can be most effectively provided and located. So thank you very much. I'm sure that there are other layers out there like this. We don't necessarily have to create every one of these layers ourselves. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to continuing to work with all of you.